Have you been in one of those situations before where people assumed you knew what was going on? They just assumed you knew something and you didn't know.
Dude, my whole life, my guy. I feel like my whole life it's been a nod and wave situation where it's like, I understand. Yes, for sure.
Yeah, I'm a football guy, but
Yeah.
like if you start talking about baseball,
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know if I could say the name of a baseball player right now. And like
Yep.
some of the ones when I was a kid, but like it would be hard. And so I just sit there and nod, like,
Yeah.
I think, going back to what we're trying to be about here, there's a lot of assumed things in the church that like people just need to smile and nod, go along with what we say, like we don't go back to what are the biblical reasons for why the church is doing what it's doing.
Right.
And we almost assume like the next generation needs to just get on board
Right.
and follow along with what we're saying. It worked 100 years ago. It'll work today. Just
Right.
everyone buy in.
Yep.
But you do a lot of, like, you spend a lot of time with young adults.
Yeah.
That doesn't always work so well.
Unfortunately not. I mean, I feel like there's such a chasm between the younger generation and the older generation where you have the older generation that you do what you're told. And
Right.
you don't question anything. You follow the straight and narrow. And in a sense that works because when it comes to something that is true, obviously that works great. But you have this newer generation where it's coming where you kind of just question everything.
Right. It's
And
very common now.
Very common. And not to say that's wrong or bad or anything, but this newer generation, I feel like, is looking for authenticity.
Yeah.
Is looking for what is real. Because when we read the Bible, when we read Jesus in the Bible, he was so authentic.
Yeah.
That's why people either loved him or hated him.
Right.
To his guts, like just I cannot stand you, or you are the God Almighty.
What
and
you
I love
saw
you.
is what you got. You either loved it or you didn't.
100%. And so many people just want to put on the facade of this is what it is when it's really not.
Right.
And it's not authentic. Yeah.
Yeah. And what a lot of people don't realize is like younger generation is I feel like I'm questioning all these things for the first time.
Yep.
What they haven't had the privilege of seeing is those who are ahead of us, they went through a similar questioning process.
Yep.
They went through that, but now they've had years of being established.
Yeah.
They kind of just accept it. But then at times there's things that need to not change. And at times there's things we need to rethink.
Yep.
And so this is the two cultures, the older generation and the younger generation. You always have different cultures there and trying to work together.
Yeah.
And in this podcast, we're really we're taking on questions that people ask, and we don't want to assume any kind of basics. We want to get down to the heart of not what is accepted in the church today or what is the normal practice, but what is biblical.
Right.
That's how we want to be thinking.
Yep.
And so
Exactly. And I feel like so often what is biblical becomes lost. Because so many people just follow the culture, where the culture goes this way, the culture goes that way, and then how can we put the Bible in the culture rather than the Bible is what we need to follow?
Right.
And let's bring the world into this.
Right.
Let's show the world the good news.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to Together Church, we have a mission and a vision of Together Church. So I would love to ask you,
Okay.
what is the mission and the vision for Together Church?
Well, that's an important question. And if we're going to go back down to the basics, I think first we have to even think about, is it biblical to even have a vision statement and a mission statement? Is this in the Bible? And the answer to that's no. There's a lot of things that we actually do. Neither are constitution and bylaws. There's no church buildings in the Bible. There's no public restrooms like how we have them in our church buildings in the Bible. Definitely don't have social media, so we have to be asking the question, is this even biblical? And if we were honest and said, well, can I find the word vision statement in the Bible? Can I find the word mission statement in the Bible?
Yeah.
No, I cannot. So why would we even have these things? And what we can find in the Bible is we can find Christians understanding God's mission, Christians understanding God's vision, and then using modern tools to accomplish that vision and that mission. A good example of that is writing things on parchment paper and paving roads was pretty new in the world during the first century. the gospel wouldn't have spread like it spread
Yep.
without the church using those tools
Yep.
to further God's vision and God's mission. So vision statements, mission statements, they're pretty common in the Western world.
I feel like it's used so much in the culture in general, and businesses. You have, I mean, once you start up a business, what's your mission statement?
It's like
what's
the first
your
thing.
vision?
Like, well, do you have a vision statement?
Exactly.
Do you have a mission statement?
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I mean, even a podcast, you need your vision and mission statement for your podcast, you know? And so, yeah. And what we've discovered is these are great tools. They help unify and align a group of people to a common objective.
Yeah.
And so I think what the church is doing here when we say, well, what is the vision and mission statement of Together Church, and should we even have one? Well, it should never replace or usurp something biblical. But it could be a tool that could help a group, a local church, a local expression of the global church, identify what is God calling us to focus on?
Yeah.
What is God calling us to do in our unique time and history and in this context?
Yeah, that's good.
And so, then if we ask, well, do we have something like a vision statement or like a mission statement in the Bible? The answer to that is yes. It's all over the place.
Yeah.
I mean, go back to the founding of the nation of Israel, pretty important organization in the Bible, the nation of Israel.
Yeah.
And well, do they have a vision and mission statement at its founding? Well, remember, God goes to Abraham.
Yeah.
And he says, I got a vision for you. Now, he didn't use that word. He didn't say, here's my vision statement, but he gave a vision.
Yeah.
He said, I'm going to make you a great mighty nation. He said, I'm going to multiply your descendants, and you're going to inherit this promised land, and through you, all the nations of the world are going to be blessed.
Yeah.
Could you imagine being that guy who doesn't even have any children yet?
Oh my goodness.
And it just blows his mind.
I mean, God takes Abraham out and tells him to look at the stars.
Right.
And said, the as many stars as there are out there, that's how many descendants you'll have.
That's a vision.
What?
Yeah. And the vision, if I'm trying to think about something like a vision statement biblically, it's normally that thing that's bigger than us.
Yeah.
That like blows my mind. God, you're going to have to do this or it's not going to happen.
Exactly.
And then the mission was like, Abraham, can't imagine how to get this done. And so God's like, well, Abraham, just leave where you are now and go to the place I'm going to show you. Well, I can do that.
Yeah.
And Abraham had a choice.
Yeah.
God gave him a mission. Leave where you are, leave your homeland and all the comforts there, travel to become a foreigner in a new place, take everything you got, move. And Abraham goes, okay, I'll do it.
Yep.
Well, his obedience to the mission, God used that obedience to bring about his vision.
Yes.
And so that would be something, it happens for Moses. Remember the burning bush?
Yeah.
And God's like, go release 1 million slaves from the most powerful king that in this area of the world, maybe in the whole world.
Yeah.
And
from the palace that you grew up in.
Right, where you're a wanted fugitive for murder.
Exactly.
And Moses is like, no, I can't get that done.
Yeah.
And God's like, well, okay, that's the vision. And so then again, vision statement's not used there, but that's like a vision, something like a vision. And then God's like, well, stick your hand in your cloak and pull it out. Drop that staff on the ground. Go do what I tell you to do and say what I tell you to say. Yeah. And it's like, well, I can do that. Moses was resistant at first. Please, God, pick someone else. But eventually he got in alignment.
Right.
And through Moses's alignment with the mission, God brought about his vision.
Yeah.
And then, well, what about the New Testament? Well, Jesus gave a vision for his church. He says, on this rock, I'll build my church. And the gates of hell will not prevail against it.
Yeah.
Could you imagine being those disciples and hearing that?
Oh my goodness. It would just be a moment. I mean, because the disciples were all about free us from Rome.
Right.
And so I feel like when Jesus said that, it would be like a moment of free us from Rome.
Right.
Like, get us out of here. Yes.
And that vision and I agree, because that was kind of the context they were thinking at that time, but their vision was too small.
Exactly.
God was talking about not overcoming the evil of the Roman Empire.
Exactly.
He was talking about overcoming the evil one.
Yep.
And the church winning in every place
100%.
in the world. That's bigger than us.
Yep.
That's a vision we can't bring about. But then Jesus gives the church a mission. When just before he ascends, he says, go make disciples.
Yep.
Well, they knew what he meant.
Yeah.
Because they had watched Jesus disciple them for 3 years.
Yep.
And so they go, okay, just follow his example. Do what he did, and it'll ripple out to the end of the earth, to the end of the age. So we don't have vision statement in the Bible, We don't have a mission statement in the Bible, but
right.
we do have something like visions that are bigger than us.
Yeah.
And missions that we can say, I can align with God by doing that.
Yeah.
And I think we need to not assume that, because if we should understand, if we just slap a vision statement down, slap a mission statement down, we chose that one because it looks great on a website.
Exactly.
We picked that mission because it's catchy and people will remember it.
Yep.
No, if we're going to do that, shouldn't people really be like a local church be seeking God?
Yep.
And whatever vision and mission they come up with should not contradict the vision and mission God has given the church. It should be in complete alignment, but maybe it helps that group of people align a little better and understand in our modern context who we are right now, where we're at with the tools we have available. What is God's vision for us? What is he promising to bring about if we'll follow him? And then what's the mission? How do we align? How do we follow him?
Yeah.
So I think not assuming that stuff matters a lot. And then we get back to the question, which one more time.
Yeah. What is the mission and the vision of Together Church?
Okay. So I think we're ready to hear it. The vision's bigger than us.
Yeah.
Okay. And when I first say it, it normally doesn't knock people out of their seats.
Okay.
But if you think about it for just a moment, it really doesn't make any sense. God's vision for Together Church is to develop people who radically impact the world for Jesus Christ. Okay. When I think about that vision, I can't develop anyone. Like, I can do my part to encourage and disciple, but I can't make anyone change spiritually.
Yeah.
God has to do that part. And then we are a church that is a smaller church in South Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
And God's vision for us is to radically impact the world for Jesus Christ. Do you know how big the world is?
It's pretty big.
It's pretty big.
Yeah.
I keep watching things like, I'll watch some kind of food network channel, like Food Channel or show, or we're watching something on Netflix right now. And I see all these cities in the world, and it blows my mind how many people there are and how much stuff is going on every day.
Yeah.
And God's vision is that Together Church in South Oklahoma City would radically, not just kind of sort of radically impact the world. That's a vision bigger than us.
Yeah.
And so that's in alignment with things like, Abraham, I'm going to make you this mighty nation and bless the whole earth through you, or, the gates of hell will not prevail against it. And you're going to radically develop people who radically impact the world for Jesus Christ. So that's God's vision.
Yeah.
We can't do it.
Right.
So God has given us a mission.
Yeah.
How do we align to it?
Yeah.
And the mission God has given us is we will create relational environments where disciples of Jesus are made. That's what we can do.
Yeah.
Like, we'll be faithful to gather.
Exactly.
We'll share relationships in those gatherings.
Yeah.
We'll understand that we need the example of other believers, mature believers, to learn how to live, that we can imitate their example as they're imitating Christ.
Yeah.
And then through that, we can have real conversations, authentic conversations, even question some things and find out what the Bible actually says. And then through that, God's going to accomplish that.
Yeah.
It's not, I'm not going to go out and say, well, I gotta find 5 ringers who I can send to 5 different corners of the earth and make this great impact. No, that's not my part.
Yeah.
My part is love people here, make disciples here, be in relationship with each other, and trust that through that, all great works of God in the world, do you know what they share in common?
What's that?
Mature disciples of Jesus are a part of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so if we'll do our part in the mission to create relational environments where mature disciples of Jesus, then God will work in the power of his Spirit through those mature disciples of Jesus, and he'll use them to fulfill that vision.
That's so good, because I read this stat recently that it showed the number of Bibles that were sold in the recent years.
Okay.
And in 2019, I can't remember the exact numbers, but it's something like 9.7 million Bibles that were sold in 2019.
Okay.
A lot of Bibles, right?
Yeah.
2023.
Paper Bibles.
Yes.
Okay.
2023, there were 13.6 million Bibles sold in the whole year of 2023. 2024, all the way up until October, so not even the full year, there were 14.7
Whoa.
And so the number of Bibles that were sold in 2024, there was a 22% increase from 2023 to 2024. And so the question arises is, you have all these Bibles that are being sold. The Christian faith is spreading, which is amazing, absolutely amazing around the world. But who's discipling these people?
Right.
How, when it comes to people actually living life with one another, how are these guys growing in the faith? Because I mean, they're not going to get all the information from the internet.
Right. No.
You know what I mean?
A Google search is not a good way to be discipled.
Probably not. No. And to be honest with you, you have all these people that are being raised in the faith, and they don't have that person that is going to disciple them, that's going to do that one-on-one relational discipleship like what you were talking about. And so the question arises is, how do we do that without a mission and a vision for the faith?
Yeah, and God has given us a mission that we would create that opportunity for every believer.
Right.
Now, whether they take it or not is their part.
Sure.
But I want it to be an equal opportunity. Whoever you are, wherever you come from, however old you are, whatever you know or don't know, you can find a relationship with a more mature disciple of Jesus who will help you along the way.
Yeah.
Well, if we'll fulfill the mission, if we'll be in those relational environments where disciples are being made, we create more and more opportunity for that authenticity that people are searching for. And that's even demonstrated in the Bibles they're buying. You can tell people are looking for something real.
Exactly.
I mean, they could scroll their phone all they want, but they're buying paper Bibles.
Exactly.
You know, they're looking for something real.
Yep.
Well, they need to find it. They can find it in the Word, but Jesus says they need to find it in the church.
Exactly.
They need to find it in, and not just in sermons or weekend gatherings. They need to find it in relationships in the church. And that's the mission God has given us. So
I think so many people are realizing, like what you just said at the end there, that you're not really finding it in the church, you're finding it in relationships. So many people are realizing that.
Yeah.
Because like I said earlier, you're looking for authenticity, where you have all these people that the way to go was just, you go to church. You go to church every Sunday, and then you do your best to live out the Christian faith through the rest of the week.
Right.
And to be honest with you, that is such a small part of the gospel.
Yeah.
Where the Bible doesn't say go to church every Sunday.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't say, these things, but what it does say is live out the Great Commission.
Yes.
It says to make disciples who make disciples.
And that's where we need, just kind of even going back to the beginning of this, it's okay to question.
Yeah.
Well, is being a Christian just mean going to church or reading my Bible or praying? What's the do's and don'ts? You know, that's the tendency.
Right.
You know, it's a good thing that these genuine seekers who are buying these Bibles and looking for answers and even questioning what's been happening and why it's been happening. As we search those things out, we need those relationships that will help us be able to get to, because it isn't about the religious practices.
Exactly.
It's about the relationship we have with Jesus. But what we do does matter.
Exactly.
And it matters for the relationship. Just like any meaningful relationship you have in your life.
Yeah.
What you do in that relationship matters.
Exactly.
I mean, you can really, that relationship, you can be in the same room with your wife and not be in relationship with her.
2 feet away, but 2 million miles away, it feels like.
And so, how do we have that authentic kind of relationship with God?
Yeah.
We need those environments, relational environments, where we can learn to do that.
100%.
So I know we're almost out of time. Is there anything else we want to know about the vision and mission before we're done? Or
I guess one question would be, and we can lightly talk about this, but one question would be, when it comes to the mission and vision of Together Church, sometimes things get hard.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's difficult to live out that mission or vision. And so I guess my question would be, how do we live out that mission or vision even when it is difficult?
Yeah. It could be its own podcast. But the short answer, we're reflecting in 1 Thessalonians right now on Sunday mornings.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about that church a lot.
Yeah.
Paul celebrates them big time for what you just said, remaining faithful, staying the course.
Yeah.
And he's celebrating them because, unlike me, I'm not suffering to the point of bloodshed for my, I've suffered some, there's decisions I got to make, and there's people who have come at me for things I've said or things I believe and what I've shared, even if I share it genuinely and in love from sincere faith. It creates, but nothing like the church at Thessalonica. They were, like Paul, being heavily persecuted.
Yeah.
And Paul's celebrating them for staying the course.
Yeah.
Just like, and he says, here's how we know, and this is what he celebrates them for. When you heard the gospel, you did not just receive it as word only,
Yeah.
but you received it in the power of the Holy Spirit and with full conviction. And I think if we're going to last in that, this cannot be, well, my church says I need to go to a small group.
Yeah.
My church says, they're constantly pushed. They got that big jointed group wall in the back. And I guess as long as I'm going here, I need to be in a group. If that's the motivation, if that's the depth of our faith, it's not very authentic. We're just trying to fit in. The motives aren't right.
Yeah.
We have to reach a point in our life where I say, I need you.
Yeah.
And I really believe that. I need examples. I need, like Hebrews says, I need people to stir me up to love and good works.
Yeah.
I need relationship every day with other disciples of Jesus, because my heart will become hardened by the deceitfulness of sin. The gates of hell, I'll buy into those lies.
Yeah.
And that vision Jesus has, I can slip away from it so easy.
Yep.
And so I need those genuine, authentic relationships. And so if we're going to stay the course, it can't just be about what we do.
Yeah.
It has to be about who we are.
100%.
It can't be behavior modification. It has to be spiritual transformation.
Yeah.
It has to be genuine belief in the gospel, rooted in full conviction in the power of the Holy Spirit and what he's done for us.
For sure. And I feel like one of the biggest downfalls of the human race is just how quickly we forget.
Yeah.
It's just, God could save us Monday, and by Wednesday, what happened on Monday again?
Right.
And the truth is, there's so many beautiful moments in discipleship.
Yeah.
So many beautiful moments. That's how we got connected. I was seeking some kind of discipleship. You were ready to pull me in, and our relationship just took off from there.
Yeah.
And the way that God used that discipleship relationship between us was so beautiful. But the truth is, there's moments when it gets tough. When you don't have that new person that comes in, and it's been dry for a little while.
Yeah.
And we forget.
Right.
We forget these are all the beautiful things that God has done for us before. And we forget that he can continue to do them in the future. And so that moment of realizing this is the calling that God has put on our lives. Let us not forget this, and let us strive towards what God has called us to do. Always remembering how much he has done for us is so beautiful.
That's it. And we hope that all of you listening, whether you're being discipled or discipling someone right now, our hope is that maybe this conversation today is getting you to think about the church a little differently. It's so easy for us to get wrapped up in going to church once a week or checking off my responsibility so that God will be pleased with me. To realize he's already pleased with you if you're one of his children. He already loves you. He couldn't love you more than the way that he sent Jesus to die for your sin. And he's given you the power of the Holy Spirit. And if you'll engage in his vision and his mission, he will do great things through you. And you need to find a church, wherever you're listening right now, that aligns with the vision and the mission that God has given his church. And I'll tell you this, I've seen it over and over, and Chad, we've seen it together. Yeah. The gates of hell will not prevail against his church. So we hope you'll find that kind of relationship. It's been great to be with you guys.